2 tornado emergencies in the same state in the same night. A tornado outbreak is ongoing in the southeastern United States as the SPC issued an enhanced risk for severe weather driven by a 10% chance for significant tornadoes. A tornado emergency was issued in southwestern Mississippi, along with several other tornado warnings having PDS warning tags. The Franklin County Emergency Management Director reported that multiple homes were destroyed, with residents trapped as dangerous weather conditions slowed response efforts. Another tornado emergency was issued for Brookhaven and Bogue Chitto, Mississippi, as the storms pushed eastward. 2 tornado emergencies, Franklin County and southwestern Mississippi. Multiple homes destroyed, residents trapped, emergency crews unable to reach them because the storm was still moving. And then Brookhaven, the same Brookhaven that was devastated in 2017, receiving the most urgent warning designation in American meteorology a second time in less than a decade. This is what Wednesday night produced in Mississippi. And I have to be honest with you right now, on Thursday, May 8th, 2026, the atmosphere is not done. What happened Wednesday night was the most recent chapter in a season that has now produced 2 tornado emergencies, an EF5, 3 EF3s, an EF4, and 12 confirmed American deaths, in what the seasonal forecast described as a near-average year. And this weekend, the big clash that gives this video its title is setting up across the Central Plains. Cold Canadian air driving south, tropical Gulf moisture streaming north, a dry line sharpening across western Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. The 2 air masses that have been fighting all spring are about to collide again, and the communities in the path of that collision need to know what is coming before it arrives. Let me give you the complete picture of what Wednesday night produced, because the warning product record from Wednesday evening tells a story of sustained, intense, life-threatening severe weather across the Deep South. 2 tornado emergencies issued by NWS Jackson for Mississippi. The most serious tornado warning designation reserved for confirmed violent tornadoes directly threatening populated areas. Multiple additional tornado warnings with PDS tags across central and southern Mississippi through the evening. Supercells capable of all hazards developed across portions of central Mississippi and Alabama before a shift to a more damaging wind risk into the late evening and overnight. And the reach of the overnight squall line was extraordinary. The very moist environment supported additional warm sector storms throughout much of the evening and overnight, with the continued risk for all severe hazards extending into northern Georgia and upstate South Carolina late overnight. Northern Georgia, upstate South Carolina. The squall line that began as supercells in Mississippi raced east and pushed all the way into the Carolinas by the early hours of Thursday morning. Communities in Greenville, Spartanburg, and the upstate South Carolina corridor that were not in yesterday morning's forecast discussions ended up under tornado watches before midnight. This is the geographic reach of a storm system powered by mid to upper 70-degree mixing ratios, tropical level moisture that sustains storm intensity over hundreds of miles of travel. The Franklin County Emergency Management Director reported that multiple homes were destroyed with residents trapped as dangerous weather conditions slowed response efforts. Residents trapped. In Franklin County, Mississippi, homes were not just damaged. They were destroyed, and emergency crews could not reach them while the storm was still moving. That is the scenario that produces fatalities when the structural damage is severe enough. The damage survey teams are working through Franklin County and Lincoln County today. The full scope of what Wednesday night produced will be confirmed over the next 24 to 48 hours as NWS survey teams access the affected areas. I want to draw a comparison that I think is critically important for understanding the risk in the next 2 weeks, because the calendar is pointing at something that every severe weather professional in this country knows. May 2025 experienced an exceptionally active severe weather season. After a relatively quiet start to the month, severe weather erupted on May 15-16, producing at least 79 confirmed tornadoes. The May 16th outbreak resulted in significant casualties across multiple states, with St. Louis experiencing catastrophic damage from a nearly mile-wide wedge tornado. A second major outbreak from May 18th, 20 generated at least 118 additional tornadoes and brought torrential downpours that exacerbated flooding in already saturated regions. May 15-16, 2025, a nearly mile-wide wedge tornado through St. Louis. 79 confirmed tornadoes in a single day. May 18-20, 2025. 118 additional tornadoes. 2 back-to-back major outbreaks in a 5-day window. And that window, May 15th through 20, corresponds directly to the single most historically active severe weather week in American records. The single most active week in U.S. tornado history is May 19th through 26, accounting for about 6% of all tornado reports ever recorded. May 19th through 26, 11 days from today. The most dangerous week in American severe weather history by the data. And 2025 demonstrated what that window can do. 197 tornadoes in 5 days, a catastrophic St. Louis wedge tornado, compound flooding events across the Mississippi Valley. The 2026 atmosphere is running in the same La Nina to El Nino transitional pattern that preceded 2025's May outbreak. The same mean upper troughing over central Canada that has driven this entire spring severe weather is still in place, and the Gulf moisture that has been the fuel for every event since March is still streaming northward. The La Nina to El Nino transition resembles the pattern before the devastating 1974 and 2011 seasons, three of the most significant severe weather springs in American history, all featuring the same ENSO transition pattern we are currently in. The May 1926 window is 11 days away, and the atmosphere is not calming down between now and then. Now let me explain the big clash that is assembling for this weekend, because it is the most technically elegant expression of what severe weather physically is, and understanding it helps people appreciate why the weekend matters. Severe weather in the central United States is, at its core, a clash. It is what happens when two fundamentally incompatible air masses, one cold and dry from Canada, one warm and moist from the Gulf of Mexico, are forced into contact by the large-scale atmospheric circulation. The boundary where they meet is the dry line or cold front. The energy released when they clash is what powers supercells, tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. Right now, today, there are two air masses in motion across North America. The first is the cold, dense, stable air flowing south and east from the Canadian blocking low over Ontario and Quebec, the same system that has been driving cool temperatures and frost threats across the Midwest and Northeast all week. The second is the warm, moist, spectacularly unstable Gulf air that fed Wednesday night's two tornado emergencies in Mississippi, air laden with moisture from a Gulf that is running above its normal temperature for early May. An upper shortwave trough will be located over Texas on Saturday. Meanwhile, another upper shortwave trough will migrate from the central Rockies into the central plains on Saturday. These features will result in modestly increasing mid- and upper-level northwesterly flow across the plains. At the surface, modest southerly low-level flow will continue to transport Gulf moisture northward across the southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley. Weak surface cyclogenesis is possible across the central and southern plains, and a dry line will extend across western Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Two shortwave troughs converging on Saturday, one over Texas, one ejecting from the Rockies. Gulf moisture streaming northward. A dry line sharpening across western Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Weak surface cyclogenesis possible. This is the physical manifestation of the big clash. The two air masses meeting head-on along that dry line, with two independent sources of upper-level energy overhead to provide the forcing that makes storms explode. The specific question for Saturday is how far north the Gulf moisture advances before the shortwave energy arrives. If moisture quality is marginal, if the dry line stays in dry westerly Texas air, the severe weather coverage remains limited. But if the Gulf moisture surges further north into central Oklahoma and southern Kansas before the shortwave arrives, if it advances 50 to 100 miles further than the models currently show, Saturday's setup escalates quickly. However, how far north quality moisture return will occur, especially before Saturday night and early Sunday, is uncertain. Additionally, deep layer flow is not forecast to be very strong. Uncertainty about moisture extent, modest deep layer flow. These are the limiting factors that prevent the SPC from issuing elevated risk areas for Saturday at this range, but they are not the factors that prevent Saturday from being significant. The atmosphere has repeatedly exceeded moisture extent expectations this spring. Every time the models underestimated how far north and how deep the Gulf moisture would surge, the actual event was more severe and more widespread than the forecast. If you live in western Oklahoma, western Kansas, or the Texas Panhandle, Saturday afternoon requires your attention. Watch the morning model runs and the SPC updates throughout Saturday. The moisture versus cap battle is going to play out in real time, and the outcome determines whether Saturday is a limited event or something more significant. I want to acknowledge something that the iWeatherNet tornado season page flagged this week, because I think it provides important context for how we understand the current season. 15 years since the record-breaking super outbreak. The most recorded tornadoes in a single day with 324 people killed. April 27th, 2011. 15 years ago. 324 people killed in a single day. The deadliest tornado day in modern American history. And here we are, 15 years later, with a season that has already produced a tornado emergency for Brookhaven, Mississippi, a city that sits in the same geographic corridor that was devastated in 2011, just 150 miles from Tuscaloosa, where the EF4 carved its 80-mile path of destruction. The La Nina to El Nino transition resembles the pattern before the devastating 2011 season. Alabama leads the nation in tornado deaths at 14 per year on average. The March 2026 outbreaks hit Illinois and Indiana hardest, confirming this eastward shift. The same ENSO pattern, the same geographic corridor. 15 years of rebuilding and recovery in Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee, And the atmosphere does not observe anniversaries. It does not recognize that the same towns it devastated in 2011 are still carrying the weight of that day. It operates on physics and thermodynamics and moisture and shear. And right now, those physics are producing 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi and a weekend setup that has the structural fingerprints of the same recipe. I want to be absolutely clear. I am not predicting an April 27th, 2011 repeat. The current setup does not have the same scope or intensity. But the 15th anniversary of the super outbreak arriving in the same week as 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi is a reminder, a stark and sober reminder, that the atmosphere is capable of producing events that reshape communities for generations. And the communities in the path of this weekend's clash deserve the same urgency that 2011's affected communities wish they had received. Let me give you the specific geographic and temporal picture for the rest of this week and into the weekend. Today, Thursday, southeast residual. A few strong to severe thunderstorms are possible. Thursday, across portions of the central Gulf Coast into South Carolina. Central Gulf Coast through South Carolina. Thursday's residual severe weather is concentrated along the Gulf Coast, portions of south central Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, and extending northeast into South Carolina, where the squall line's trailing moisture persists. These are not major threats, isolated and scattered rather than organized. But in a season where Franklin County, Mississippi is still assessing homes destroyed and residents trapped from Wednesday night, any additional severe weather in this corridor demands attention. Friday, transition and preparation. Friday looks to be the quietest day of the next 5. The cold front has pushed through the deep south. Drier, cooler air is filling in behind. The Gulf moisture is temporarily suppressed south of the front. Use Friday to prepare for Saturday. Know your shelter plan. Charge your devices. Check the forecast one more time Friday evening before you go to sleep. Saturday, the dry line clash. Western Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. The dry line extends from western Kansas southward through the Oklahoma Panhandle and into West Texas. 2 shortwave troughs converging. Gulf moisture return in progress. A surface cyclogenesis signal possible over the southern plains. Watch for SPC outlook upgrades. Saturday morning, if the models show better moisture quality further north than currently expected, risk areas will expand and intensify. The primary threats if storms develop along Saturday's dry line: large hail, damaging wind gusts, and tornadoes. Classic plains, supercell territory, classic May setup. The same fundamentals that drive every great tornado outbreak in American history, operating along the same dry line corridor that has been active all spring. Sunday, cold frontal passage. Sunday's cold front suppresses Gulf moisture on Monday. As the front sweeps through the southern plains and into the deep south Sunday, additional thunderstorm development is possible. Severe weather potential exists, especially across Oklahoma and Kansas in the morning hours, as the front overtakes Saturday's dry line moisture. By Sunday evening, drier air fills in across the plains. Tuesday, the next reload. Another cold front is forecast to move across portions of the plains and Midwest on Tuesday, and any severe potential will depend on timing and quality of moisture return into the central United States, which is uncertain. Overall, predictability is low late in the forecast period. Tuesday brings the next frontal system, the next potential clash, the next round of the same pattern. At this range, the uncertainty is high, but the signal is real. And the May 19th, 26 peak window is arriving right in the middle of the period covered by Tuesday's front and whatever follows it. I need to return to Franklin County, Mississippi, not just as a data point in Wednesday's event, but as the human reality of what this season has cost. Franklin County is a rural county in southwestern Mississippi with a population of about 7,500 people. It is not a wealthy county. It is not a county with substantial modern storm shelter infrastructure. It is a county of small farms, timber, and tight-knit communities where neighbors know each other by name and where, when a tornado emergency is issued at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night, the options for shelter are limited by what exists rather than what should exist. The Franklin County Emergency Management Director reported that multiple homes were destroyed with residents trapped as dangerous weather conditions slowed response efforts. Residents trapped, not in a collapsed parking garage in a major city, in their homes in rural Mississippi, while the storm was still moving east and emergency crews could not safely reach them. This is the face of severe weather vulnerability in Dixie Alley that statistics and risk areas and CAPE values and SRH numbers cannot fully capture. It is a family in a frame house in Franklin County, Mississippi, in the path of a tornado emergency, with no basement, no community shelter within reach, and a Wednesday night warning that may have come too late or too quiet. Alabama leads the nation in tornado deaths at 14 per year on average. Population density in Dixie Alley is roughly 3 times higher than traditional Tornado Alley, and these storms often strike at night, making them deadlier. 3 times the population density, night storms. Limited shelter options. Rural communities with delayed emergency response. This is the specific combination that has made Dixie Alley historically the deadliest tornado corridor in America. And Wednesday night's event verified every element of that profile. For the families in Franklin County and Lincoln County this morning, the season is not over. The weekend brings another dry line clash. The next 2 weeks lead to the May 19th, 26 peak window. I'm not saying this to add to their burden. I'm saying it because the preparation that they deserve, the shelter infrastructure, the warning lead times, the community readiness, needs to be in place before the next event arrives, not after it. Here's where we stand. Thursday, May 8th, 2026. Wednesday night produced 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi. One in Franklin County, where multiple homes were destroyed and residents were trapped. One for Brookhaven and Bogue Chitto. Plus, tornado watches extending all the way into South Carolina overnight. The most dangerous severe weather of this entire spring season happened in the Deep South, in the dark, against communities that had spent all of April without a single tornado warning. The season's death toll stands at 12 Americans. The damage survey teams are in Franklin County and Lincoln County today. The full picture of Wednesday night is still being assembled. Flash floods and damaging wind gusts can be just as destructive as tornadoes and often impact a much larger area. It only takes one storm striking a densely populated or vulnerable community to make this a devastating season. Do not let your guard down this severe weather season. This weekend, the big clash resumes: cold Canadian air driving south, Gulf moisture streaming north, a dry line sharpening across western Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas on Saturday, 2 shortwave troughs converging, weak surface cyclogenesis possible, classic May, classic plains, classic supercell territory. And behind this weekend, 11 days from today, the May 19th and 26 window, the single most historically active severe weather week in American records, in the same ENSO transitional pattern that preceded 2011's super outbreak, with the same mean upper troughing still in place over Canada, with a Gulf that is still warm and still willing to send tropical moisture northward into every clash. Know your shelter. Charge your devices. Set your overnight alerts before you sleep each night. And for every community in the path of this weekend's dry line, have your plan made before Saturday afternoon. The season has not peaked, the clash has not finished, and the communities in its path deserve every second of warning lead time the atmosphere gives them. Stay safe. I will be back with updates as Saturday's setup sharpens.